Hey everybody, and welcome to another show. I've got Fernando waiting in the wings, and we have a very special guest as well. We're both absolutely giddy at this one because we've been waiting a long time to speak to this gentleman. He is somebody that everybody in the paranormal will know, and he's everybody's favourite paranormal investigator. So, without any more ado, I will flip to the screen with everybody and see if you can work out who we are talking to. Fernando, how are you, mate?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Let me just say it is amazing how we have three different time zones just working all together right now.
And obviously, without any introduction required, we have the awesome Barry Fitzgerald with us all the way over in Ireland. How are you, mate?
I'm very good, Gary. Thanks very much for having me on, and you too, Fernando.
Oh,
Oh,
we're
it's gonna be awesome. It's gonna
yeah,
be
we'd
awesome.
be like a couple little schoolgirls, so we're just going to be giggling a lot. So I think to start off with, we'll start off right at the start. How did you first get interested in the paranormal, and where did it take you before you became famous or para-famous, as we like to say?
Um, I would probably say it started all the way back in my infancy. Growing up in a haunted house here in Ireland certainly set the foundations for me to develop the path that I'm on now. And my father has to take some responsibility there as well, because he used to sit me down in front of the TV and during the 70s and watch Star Trek
Oh,
and
good
Doctor
show.
Who and
Oh,
things like
even
that.
better
So of
show.
course, as a child, that inspired that want to know more. So part of the blame that's his, definitely, to accept. Um, and and also, I would have to say, leading on from that, uh, there were, I was part of a research team here in Ireland. Then I set up my own research team, and it just started to grow from there. Now, how did GHI come about? Well, really, GH were coming to Ireland to do an Irish show here, and they asked if I could be a fixer in the background, and I said, yeah, no problem. And it was a friend of ours, a mutual friend in Washington D.C., that recommended me, and so that's how they got in contact. So they came across to Ireland, and lo and behold, one of the guys was afraid to fly, and they were a man down. So that left a hole within the cast, and they said, Barry, would you consider going in front of the camera? I said, yeah, sure, whatever. And that was it. So when the show aired, it turned out to be one of the highest rated shows in the up until that point in the show's history. And about 2 months later, I got a phone call from LA, and they said, Barry, we would seriously like you to consider being part of a research team that's going to go global. And well, that took all of about 20 seconds
Yeah,
to say, yeah, I'll do it.
it would.
And that's how I got in. There was no auditioning or anything like that. They came looking for me.
Mm. And that's usually the way it works. And what I find funny when you hear a lot of people talking about stars, and I know you'll understand this, but when they say, "Oh, but some such and such from such and show," they're the experts and what have you. No, they're the
Yeah.
guys that got picked to be on TV. You guys are experts for
Mm-hmm.
completely different reasons. You were doing that long before you got picked for the show, and this is what a lot of people don't understand. So, before you got involved with the show, what was probably one of the scariest cases that you've ever actually dealt with, or most intense?
Well, I was a lot greener behind the ear back in the day, and I do remember one particular case, and it didn't last too long, because we had often been told that there was a this it was an old house in my hometown, in which back in the day there was this event that occurred. Guys broke into the house, child started to cry, they drowned the child in the well outside, and there was this story that developed around that when you seen the candle lit in the window, that it meant that the child was home, and the child, this energy of the child was filled with revenge and everything else. And I can remember arriving there with there must have been about 7 or 8 of us, and we started walking down this lane. And bear in mind, this lane is covered on both sides by huge ash trees. And the light of the moon, it was having very little effect on the darkness within this lane. And as we came alongside of this old ruin of the house, I happened to look up, and as true as I sit here, there was a light in the window.
And
I never stopped. I turned that fast. I was heading back up that lane again at warp speed. And I remember one of the girls had grabbed my jacket and tore the jacket right off my back. I never stopped. I kept going.
Well, I was going to ask.
That was one of the most scariest things to start with.
I was going to ask about funny things on investigations, but you've already started off with a corker. I mean, I guess it wasn't funny at the time, but yeah. Fernando, do you want to jump in?
That was definitely one of those times.
I would like to go a little back, because I actually recall, like, if I was to see the episode yesterday. So the gentleman that actually couldn't make the flight was Steve Gonzalez.
That's right. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and it was actually one of my questions that I would like to ask you of this location. Like, what was your personal experience? But with ghost hunters, they went to so many places here in the States. But when they first started going out to internationally, their first case international, which is the one that you was in, was Leb Castle. And you guys was dealing with a elemental. So that just opened up, like, we have so many different types of spirits out there, entities, but I've never heard of an elemental before at the time. So how was that?
An elemental, I've had dealings with them before, and these things, they're like sleeping dogs, and certainly Lep Castle is no different. If you know how to prod the dog, beware of its bite. And that was very apparent. And I can remember when we started to film at Lep Castle, that and Sean, the guy that owns Lep Castle, is a personal friend of mine, and we started to film, and Wheezy had set everything up, Brian Harnois, and he had set all the cameras up and everything else. And I said, now, before you plug that in, are you sure you've got the power ratings all stabilized? Everything's going through transformers and everything else. And he says, yeah. Everything's good. Are you sure? Because America runs on 110, we run on 220, 220 volts. And he says, yeah. He pushed the socket into the wall and he blew the fuses in the castle. Everything, all the lights went out. And he looked at me, and I says, now we're in its territory. And that's where it all started, within Lep Castle. Now that of course didn't air, but that was, I remember that distinctly. And I've had many experiences at Lep as well. Lep has a long reach, and I know folks. I'll give you an example. I know folks that I took to Lep Castle, and I had arranged with Sean that I was bringing them down, but Sean completely forgot, and he was off doing a gig somewhere, a musical gig, and because he's a prolific musician. And so we arrived. There was no one there. Folks got a quick look around, and it says, right, let's go. We're leaving, because I was very aware that Lep, the elemental in Lep, will look after Lep. And we started to head out the gate. Now I know that road like the back of my hand. And as we started to drive, suddenly my impulse was to turn right, yet the bend was going left. I said, "What's going on? It's something. There's confusion being set in here. What's happening?" And I couldn't understand what was going on at that particular point until we got lost. We were completely lost, and we were driving through the middle of bogland. When I stopped the bus and I says, "Look, guys, I apologize. I'm going to have to step out a moment. Something isn't right." And I stepped out. And doing what I do, I listened, and I got back into the bus, and there was two lads in the front. And I said, "Lads, the stones that you took from the castle, throw them out the window." Now, everyone else in the bus was horrified at this stage, and the two in the front were horrified because they had no idea how the hell I knew that they had taken stones from the castle. And this was Lep's reach. This was the elemental's reach. And I said, right, and so they threw the stones out the window, and we started to drive, but the confusion was still there. And I stopped the bus again, and I says, "Lads, don't do this. Put the rest of the stones out the window." And their friends in the back were not amused at this point, but they took the rest of the stones out and threw them out the window. And then the cloud lifted, the confusion lifted, and everything else, and we drove off. We were being taken on a horseshoe route. It was bringing us back to the castle.
Back to the start, so you can drop everything off.
Yeah. And I've spoken to others who would often take things from Lep, and they end up in trouble. And they have to get rid of the stuff. Now, at the beginning, whenever Lep was running well, and there were English landlords who owned the castle at that time. They had gone to, it was London or Dublin, I can't remember which one it was. But while they were out, it was customary if someone came to your door back in the day, that if they needed shelter and a roof over their head, you give them shelter. But it turned out that the rap come to the door, and the butler looked out the window, and he said, "Yeah, what's up?" And they said, "We need shelter for the night." And he came down and opened the door. Now, it turned out that it was the IRB, Irish Republican Brotherhood, and they said, we're here to burn the castle." And so the butler, he was able to get some of the furniture out, and they said they torched the place. Now, the oldest part of the castle is built around the 12th century, and that's the bit that they couldn't get rid of. Both wings were up in flames at this stage, but they couldn't get rid of the castle, so they decided they were going to go into the basement and lace it with TNT. And they would have blown it to smithereens had they not found the wine. So they got absolutely pissed out of their heads, and then they were afraid to light the fuse, and they left it. That's why Lep is still there today, because the guys get drunk.
Oh my God!
On another note is that some of the furniture that was taken was taken and ended up in some of the locals' houses, and we're aware that phenomena followed that furniture to their houses and started terrible hauntings there as well.
Yep, bring it all back.
So and yeah, and I'm aware of some of the secret rooms that have been uncovered by Sean since the filming and everything else, and so Lep does what it does. It's a castle not to be messed with. In particular, it's best not to mess with the elemental. I've come across these in a pocket of other places, the Paris Underground, in South Africa.
I've been there when I was younger,
and places like that. So. It's interesting that the Paris Underground, they say that people shouldn't go down there that suffer from heart conditions. And I smiled as we were going down, because that's how they hit you. They will target the atmospheric pressure around you, and it lowers your immune responses, and then will target your circulatory system, and it can put you into a heart attack. So you die of a heart problem, and there's no trace.
Wow.
So they can be problematic at times, but of course that's if you start poking the bear. So yeah. I try not to do that.
No, that's what I like about what you're saying now is when you watch the show GHI, you were very much portrayed as the almost skeptic of the team, but you and I both know that to be a proper investigator, you do have to have a skeptical mind and discount anything that you can discount. But it just adds air to what you have to say about actual elementals and different entities.
Well, I've certainly found of my research now over the past 10 years that I question the phenomena. I challenge it, and it's not out of as you say, the skepticism. It is of my own safety and the people around me, because we have to be assured of the authenticity of what is coming through.
Yeah.
Because more times than not, we see, and I've wrote a book on it. It was released last March. We see more than not that there is a huge level of deceit that is portrayed by the phenomena as it comes through.
Mm-hmm.
So if it portrays itself as being a great Auntie Barbara who died 40 years ago, we're inclined to accept that straight away and go, oh yeah, it's great Auntie Barbara. No, it's not, folks. You need to be able to challenge this, because, and I say this time and time again, if the phenomena is there for your benefit, it's not going to mind a few questions for clarity.
Mm-hmm.
But 9 times out of 10, the moment that you go, wait a minute, something doesn't feel right here, it's gone. It will not wait to be analyzed or scrutinized or anything like that. And that, to me, speaks volumes of deception.
That's wow. Really cool.
Wow.
See, we're both like a couple of girls, like, wow.
I mean, honestly, again, once the guys started taking their stuff, internationally, that's when, I guess I opened up to how professional. I mean, because honestly, I don't want to get anybody in trouble, but I think once I started seeing you, Barry, on the television, I was like, wow, like this was like on another level of professionalism within. I mean, because there was others on the team that didn't, that. I don't know how far should I go with this.
Well, Barry was single-handedly responsible for bringing back the flat cap, so.
Yeah. Cool. I mean, I became an instant fan right away once I saw, especially your method of investigating, and the fact that it was Lep Castle also. I mean, everything. I'm 41 years old. I believe this episode came out when 2006. I don't even know how old I was at the time, but I remember like if it was yesterday, because it was like so profound for me at the time.
Yeah. I think from my perspective, coming from a Celtic country, and having my DNA checked and everything else, I see that I belong to this country. I'm infused into it. It is part of me, and the Celts were great for spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
Everything for them, there was the physical aspect, but there was also this spiritual aspect that was also addressed. And for us on the island here, that that is never that far away. And even today, you know, it's something that we tend to live by, in that if someone comes to your home, it was the Celtic way that you presented food to them, you give them shelter, you give them warmth, and that still is part of the parcel today. But it's also something about connecting to the land. And you know, I see that over in, I believe it was, I think it was County Cavan. There's the threat of some bridge work that's being carried out. They're wanting to put in a new bridge in the county, but they have to cut down a fairy tree. This is one of these places where they believe it was a portal to the other world, the world of the fairy. And the locals are furious that the council are deciding to cut this tree down. So that shows the level of how this phenomena can get into our bones, and how it becomes part of us because we connect to what is on the land. And in today's environment, everything is so quick. We have to have our information quick. Everything is going on, and we've got a cell phone in our hand. Everything is going on. Information is there. It's now. But there are times that whenever we need to go into a location and we just need to wait.
It's interesting.
And that information will start to filter through.
Yeah, it's interesting how you brought up about the fairy tree, because one of the questions I did have is, obviously Ireland are very strong with the fae folklore and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
How often do you come into contact with what locals may assume to be some kind of a fae entity, or
the leprechauns,
among other things? Yes.
I have to say that I have seen them. In fact, I have photographed them. I had the privilege of being able to photograph them.
Wow.
And they're not little tiny will-o'-the-wisps that you see in Hollywood. They are certainly not that at all. They're like you and me. And but the thing that really ties it in is that their connection to rocks.
Yeah.
They come through the rock into our world. Now, from here on the island, we have huge passage chambers that predate the Great Pyramids of Giza. And they're open to us 24/7, 365 days a year. If I wanted to go and sleep in one, I can do that. It's something that we connect to with our ancestors. But these were portal areas. They were gateways. And they were activated at specific times in the year. So this was a very important thing. And for the Irish, they were known, these entities that were coming through the stone are known as the Sidhe. So when you got this entity that we know as Banshee, the wailer of death, this entity that brings death, she announces death. She doesn't bring it. But the name, there's a lot of clues within the name. The Irish term Banshee is taken from ban, meaning woman, and she, which was assumed was the fairy. That's actually not quite the proper translation. Banshee means woman of the mounds. So it really connects this being to the rock mounds. And the rock mounds were built for a purpose. Now, these rock builders, these mound builders, were coming from places like Iraq and Syria back in the day. And we know that from our DNA analysis here in Ireland. From the remains. The people who were building our mounds, the mound builders, were coming from the east, and they were going west. Now, I did happen to find a translation in one of the clay tablets from Babylon, and word for word, it described an entity, which was the Banshee. This Banshee wasn't originally from the island. This came with the people that built the bloody mounds.
Oh wow!
And it has stayed here. So this is something that's thousands of years old. But not only that, the phenomena does manifest in ways that we wouldn't even consider. The manifestation can occur in many different formats, many different, as I call them, masks. It can evolve and manifest in many different masks, but it's coming through the rock, it's coming through the stone. And that was the night that I stayed on the mountain, one of the mountains here. I was able to photograph them as they manifested, and they were like you and me, but they were presenting themselves in ways that although I was seeing, the camera was not. So for there was a very valuable lesson in that particular moment, in that they are showing me what they want me to see, but they cannot fool the camera. Now, when we look at the phenomena as a whole, when we start bringing out cameras, the phenomena backs away.
Yep.
Because it can't fool the camera. It can fool us on a conscious level, but it can't fool the camera. And therein is a truth that they do not want us to know.
That that ties into just about every paranormal investigation you can think anywhere in the world. That it's it's interesting. My mind's going in a million different directions now that you've opened this door, and our podcast could end up turning into like a 5-hour thing.
I digressed from GHI, of course.
No. Look, it's all about you. It's not about GHI.
I'm saying, but this is what I'm talking about. Like there's no other personality like you, Barry, that talks this way and so so knowledgeable of everything
and passionate about it as well.
Yes. They just caught my attention to you, like how you presented yourself, and I mean, it's just so.
Well, I'm humbled by your words. Thank you.
Oh no, thank you.
Yeah.
But I suppose we should get back to GHI a little bit. So we'll jump back. So you've got the call to do an international show. How did what happened from there? When you had to go away, how was it presented? You're going to get to travel and see these places around the world and some of the most haunted locations and absolutely cool places. How long would you have to go away for in a single stint?
A single stint would be around 6 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks. But with promotions and things like that, the first year that we were out, I was back in Ireland for 4 weeks.
Wow.
So it's quite an impact. And the road of course takes its toll. My God, it does. And this is something, although it sounds great, being able to explore all these different places, there are prices to pay. There is nothing free in this universe.
No.
And that was certainly it. And we did see a huge turnover in cast. There was a revolving door in which cast came and went. And a lot of that was due to family issues. You needed to get home to your family. At that particular time, I was okay. It was me, and so I was able to do that.
So, with you being away for 6 weeks, and like you were saying, the travel takes its toll. Do you think that may have had a how do I put this? It may have affected the way you guys see things in some of the locations. It would have made things just a little bit more raw because you'd been there for so long. You're a bit more tired, and things happening seemed bigger than what they might have been. Or were you always present and bang for each episode or each location?
No, you were always present, but you always had to think outside the box. And this was something that I was very adamant about doing. When I went to a location, I was feeling it out as well. And when you're seasoned, you understand that particular phrase, and to go into a location and you're saying, okay, I want the cameras over here, or whatever was going on, I want to go back to that room, whatever the case is. But I'll give you one example of how we succeeded in thinking outside of the box. when we make plans to investigate a particular area, the phenomena is well aware of what you're about to do, and so I had to be smart in that, and we went to Wolfschanze, which was Hitler's forward command post on the Eastern Front, and this was a huge Nazi complex in Poland. Huge big bunkers, concrete bunkers everywhere. The place was filled with tunnels and everything else, and we had full access.
Oh.
And in fact, I remember one night we were driving around in a half-track tank, which was a great experience, through Hitler's backyard. But this was the first place, we had been to Argentina. We were looking for Hitler and everything else, but Hitler was never in Argentina. And I said, this is going to be our time. This is the chance that we have. And I'm an avid photographer at night, especially at night. I love the beauty of the universe beaming down on this little planet, and such pleasure to see at night when you open the shutter of the camera and just leave it open and let it absorb the light. But when we went to Wolfschanze, I threw the camera over my back and we left the SS bunker that we were staying in, and headed into the depths of this Nazi base. I got about 10 feet from the bunker and I stopped and went, nope. And I turned and went back. It's just a place that best leaving well enough alone. So during the investigation that particular night, we rolled in. I told the camera people where they were going to be. I need you there, there, there. We need sound here, here, and here. You're going to stay out of our way. And Paul was with me. And I said, Paul, we need this equipment, that equipment, and that equipment. No one had any idea what I was about to do. The only person who had it was me, and it was in here. And I had it locked away in a box.
Mm-hmm.
And the moment that the switch was flicked, the hair, everyone that was there, the hair rose on their arms. They knew we have just opened the door. And Paul was looking at me, and he was going, what the hell? And he heard the footsteps coming into the bunker. And as this music was playing, it really drove it home. And at that particular moment, we knew this is Hitler. And it was absolutely fascinating, an absolutely fascinating experience. And the moment that the switch was flicked off again, everything settled down. And I can remember the cameraman coming to me, and he says, I don't know what the hell you done, but that was amazing. I'll use more sensitized words, of course, but that was amazing.
Wow.
But yeah, so that was our experience in Wolfschanze, and it was. I had to keep the plan in my head, because the moment that it's released and it's out there, they see it.
All right. While you're talking about the Nazis and stuff like that, what do you think of Huska Castle? Because I know they were there at one point.
Oh my God. Yes, I was there.
And
yeah, I can remember. I can remember the gateway to hell, and the castle had been rebuilt, and I remember being brought to the top of the tower, and our host is telling me that, look at this, the Celts have left this design that was carved in the wall out of blood. Now I could hear my neural receptors going twing, twing, twing in my brain. Through gritted teeth, I said, so tell me, as the castle was rebuilt at this particular time period, which was, I think, the 16th century or something like that, I said, the Celts were long dead. They were gone at this stage, hundreds of years ago. How do you think the Celts managed to carve this symbol in blood at a time when they didn't exist? And he just looked at me and went, that's the mystery of Huska, and lifted the plate and zoomed out the door.
oh,
And I looked at the camera and at the guys because I wanted this message to get back to LA to say, where did we find this guy?
Yeah.
So yeah, I didn't have a lot of time for Huska. I have to say the stories that we were being told weren't tying up.
Because I'm going to say there's a lot of good
we
stories
give
about
it. We give it. We give it its credence and all the rest, and give it its respect. But there were things that weren't tying up.
Yeah.
You know, I've seen other places where there was much more history going on, like Dracula's Castle. Oh my God, there was stuff going on there that it took 10 years to figure out. The show was long gone until I found out. Oh my God, that's what that meant.
So when you
and
say
even on the show, we were getting nothing at Dracula's Castle, except one thing.
Because when you say Dracula's Castle, are you referring to Bran Castle? Because I believe there's two castles that sort of claim the Dracula one.
Yeah. Again, this particular field works well on data, and that's very, very important. And we've got a lot of allegory, a lot of stories that go around for phenomena. But when we start tapping into it, it's the data that we need. And Bran Castle is one of those castles that was sold as being Dracula's castle.
Yeah,
he was never in it.
No.
It's a tourist trap. The one that we went to was Penary, and Penary is up on the top of this huge cliff face over the Agris River, and it was Vlad's, who is Dracula. It was Vlad III. His grandfather built that castle, and huge amount of bloodshed. Like, this guy was cruel. There's no escaping it. You know, although he's seen in Romania as being a national hero, he also wiped out 10% of his own population. He was brutal, but we shouldn't lose sight on the fact that he's also known Vlad the Impaler. Yeah. And they say that, well, he learned his talents from the Ottoman Empire. Well, hold on. Where did the Ottoman Empire learn it from? Well, they learned it from the Germans. So, you know, when we're starting to point the finger, you know, we need to be ready to go down that particular rabbit hole and see what was what. But we went to Penary. But the most important thing was the night before we went to Penary, I had this visitation, if you like, and it was a lady standing on the back of lions. And she was absolutely furious. And I'm thinking to myself, what the hell is this about? She was absolutely livid that we were going to the castle. And that was the end of it. You know, it was short-lived. And during the investigation, we tried everything, outside of sacrifice, of course. We tried everything to reach Vlad. We couldn't. There was nothing. If there was any aspect of Vlad there, it certainly wasn't making its appearance. And during an EVP session, the production company didn't know what had happened the night before, because there were many times that would have occurred, but they didn't know what had happened the night before. And I switched gears during filming and addressed this lady who came in the back of lions. And there was only the one phrase that came back in that Class A: "Leave now." Ooh. And that was pretty much us. Now, for 10 years that's set, and I thought, okay, that's strange, whatever that was. But my research, of course, has led me into the ancient sects of Babylon and everything else, into our prehistory. And I was looking into this symbol of the serpent or the dragon eating its tail. Vlad's father was part of an organization known as the Order of the Dragon, and of course Vlad III was brought into that as well. It was meant to be this whole esoteric type of practice and support group that fought the Ottoman Empire for the rights of Christendom in the East. So all these high elite people were engaged in this organization. You had Stephen the Great and stuff like that were all part of this. And this symbol turned out, tracing it back, is an esoteric symbol from Babylon. And I thought to myself, well, hold on a second. What were they actually protecting? Or was the idea of fighting against Christendom a false flag? And so we went and I stepped back into this line of research to delve into it further to see where it would lead. And it turned out that this particular symbol, again, as I said, was an esoteric symbol. It was an esoteric practice from Babylon. Yes, there were things that were done back then that we certainly shouldn't be doing now in contacting these ancient deities. And this was no different, because it turns out that the woman who was standing on the back of lions was a Babylonian goddess of war. And she has been identified by the carvings in the rock faces. Now, my question is, what the hell was a Babylonian goddess of war doing at Vlad's castle? They were up to something there that a lot of the imperialist movement were all connected to. And this was now filtering out 10 years after the event, that all this had been going on. And it just blew my mind that I'd stumbled across this. But it has taken this length of time to get to it.
Well, the fact that you got that EVP and everything, and the image, it means that doesn't look like it's finished there yet. It looks like something's still going on.
But Romania is not good for me. I nearly drowned there once in Snagov, and that's the lake that they say that Vlad was buried in, or his remains went into. That's not the case. Vlad was not. He didn't die there. But there is something there. There is something in that lake. There's something in the water there that's exceptionally dangerous. And I've encountered it, and it nearly took my life once, and I have no intentions of going back to that.
Wow. That sort of blown me away.
That is what I'm talking about. That is what I'm talking about. I mean, you guys are just knocking out, lists, because obviously I was gonna ask about the Dracula's castle, but another famous I guess location that I would, that is right up there with, the famous Halloween characters. We got Dracula, but we also have Frankenstein. So how was that? Frankenstein's was it like a castle also? Frankenstein castle?
It was a castle. Yeah, it was a castle, all right. But there wasn't much left of it. And maybe part of that is because of the explosion. Whenever he was messing in his laboratory, he blew out a quarter of the castle. So there was that went on. I can't remember too much of Castle Frankenstein. It didn't leave a great impact on me. So as far as I can remember, there wasn't much happening there. Yeah, that was about it. I do remember now. We did have a guest investigator with us there, Josh Gates.
Oh, he's another favorite of mine.
There. And I remember the swine. We had a game of darts in Frankfurt, and I was doing wonderfully well. And then he started plying me with whiskey. Well, the darts started becoming weapons of mass destruction and sabotaged my gameplay. And of course, he won the game. So I never forget him for that. The last time that I saw Josh Gates, we ended up in an elevator together. And just by sheer chance, I was in the elevator, the doors opened, and there was Josh. And I went, my God, Josh Gates. And we started chatting and riding the elevator up. And I says, so what have you been up to lately? And he says, well, I was back in Ireland. And I said, hey, what were you doing? He says, well, I was looking for the leprechauns. And then there was this unusual pause. And I said, and did you find any? He said, no, we didn't know. And I said, what day were you there? He said, well, it was a Wednesday. And I said, you fucking aged. Everybody knows they come out on a Friday. And at that, the doors opened and at my floor. And I said to him, and the next time you want to come to Ireland, ask my permission. And I stepped out. And of course, I was just joking the entire time as the doors closed and Josh's mouth was... The last time I seen Josh.
Oh, well, there's no point in asking you to put in a good word to get him to come on the show as well. But, all right, so let's step it up. So we've talked about some of the cool locations. I mean, there's more locations that I want to talk to you about, but we could talk about that in private. What is one of the funniest situations you've ever been in, on air or off air, while you've been traveling the paranormal highway, so to speak?
Oh my goodness. There have been a few of those moments, and one of them that really sits out there was Australia. And when we were down, Sci-Fi Australia wanted to interview us.
Yeah.
And we said, yeah, that's okay. By the way, we have given you an open bar at this golf course. And a big mistake, number one. And we've also given you the keys of golf carts.
Oh. I've seen this movie.
So as the interview was going ahead, the drinks were going down. And of course, we took to the buggies. Now, this golf course was littered with groups of kangaroos of all different sizes.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I remember Rob was in the bunker, the sand bunker, being interviewed by the cameras. And all of a sudden, on the back of the hill behind them, this huge grouping of kangaroos came over the hill like Jurassic Park. They just came up over the top of the hill. And all of a sudden, the two golf carts came over the back with the lads, us in it, shouting and yelling. The kangaroos going that way, the golf carts coming after them. And Rob turns around to the camera and says, and that's the team. Oh, we had a great day. We had a great day that day. And no animals were injured during the making of that show.
No, kangaroos are pretty impervious to any kind of damage, believe me. It's funny you mentioned that because I'm actually in the middle of editing. We've just been on a road trip, my team, down to the south of Australia, and there were kangaroos in that as well. So they are around. People have these weird imaginations about what it's like in Australia, but they are around. So,
yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing.
There is one other location. Going back to GHI again, there is one other location, and I can't remember the name of it. You probably do know it. It was like a castle built into the mouth of a cave. And
yes,
it was like a courthouse. And
Slovenia.
It's what?
I think it was Slovenia or Slovakia. It was one of those two countries that it was in.
Yeah.
I do remember that there was a bridge with dragons on it. Can't remember which country that was. It began with S anyway.
I see. I mean, I could be completely wrong, but it's just coinciding with what I have here. I mean, because knowing that we were going to talk to you, I was just doing research. So it's Slovakia, Orava Castle. I hope I pronounced
Orava.
Right.
Oh no, Orava. No, Orava was a different one. Orava was one that it put me on high alert. Because that particular castle was built over 3 periods. The top castle was built in the 900s. The middle period was the medieval period, and then you had the bottom castle was built think around the 17th or 18th century. But it appeared during the, it was used during the filming of Nosferatu, the old black and white.
Oh,
this baldy-headed creep with big ears,
two teeth in the front.
Teeth. Yeah. So that was filmed there. But this particular castle had something definitely going on, and the further you went back, the worse it became, and even our crew that were there filming one of the days that we weren't there, they were having experiences as well. And I can remember after we finished investigating Arava, we'd done all the interviews, and then the crew came to me and says, "Okay, Barry, you can go and break the equipment down." I said, "Oh, hell no. Oh, no. I'm waiting until everyone else has got their interviews done, and we're all going to get the equipment."
Oh, man. Oh, boy.
Yeah, Arava definitely had that going on. That's a place worth a visit.
Oh, interesting. When you go to a location, it's put on TV like you'll spend a night. Was it actually a night, or was it like sometimes 2 or 3 nights, and then you'd pick the best of sort of each night, or the best night?
It really depended. For me, I always drove and pushed the production team to allow us to stay, if it was possible to stay at a location, allow us to stay in it.
Yeah,
we would stay in it, for the course of the week, because to me that allowed us to embed ourselves into it, rather than just visiting, filming during the day and then investigating that night and then you're gone. I thought that's not allowing us, not giving us the chance to do this properly.
Yeah.
So when we got opportunities to stay over, that's when we took them. And there was a great location in Brazil, and this hotel was said to be that there was this dark influence that attacked people in this particular bedroom. Well, of course, I volunteered. I says, I want that bedroom. And so the team, we stayed there for the course of the week. Fabulous country, absolutely fabulous. Brazil and Argentina, two of my favorite places. But I can remember the TV crew. They said to us, it came from our I think our producer or director, said, okay, go and have a little investigation to see what's going on, see if we can get some clues. And it had this old style elevator from the 1900s, the type where you've got a cage and you put across, and it's got a little lever inside, and you can shoot up and down. And I was absolutely fascinated by that. Very nostalgic. And but there were symbols on the outer door that I thought, wait a minute, there's something about these symbols. And it kept drawing me back to the symbols. There was something that I had to pay attention to with the symbols. But again, keeping in mind that people who were staying in this bedroom, they were being attacked. There was this dark entity that was attacking the people, and said, okay, so let's see if we make contact for this. And I asked a direct question to what I said in old Europe, because the people who built this place were from Europe, Eastern Europe. I said, so what are you known by back in the day? And it just came back class A. It came back vampire.
Oh.
And the symbols on the door of the elevator were the symbol of the vampire. That's how I recognized it. And it was in the back of my head. I said, no, I know what this is.
What?
And now, of course, when we went to the production and said, well, this is what we found. There was hell to pay because we were investigating without the cameras. But I said, well, wait a minute. You told us to do this. And oh my God, there was fury from above that we had done this and it wasn't caught in camera. And I said, well, we just done what we were told to do. And they couldn't use it because there was never any camera on it. But that's what we went after. When the proper investigation started on camera, that's what we were going after.
Wow. Well, all three of us here know that the best stuff always usually happens off camera, and it comes down to what you can personally experience rather than capture, and I think that's the vein of every paranormal investigator. In all honesty, it's very rare to actually capture one of those awesome moments. But obviously, since the show, what have you been up to, and what are you enjoying about life away from the TV cameras?
Well, I've still been a prolific author, researching the phenomena, and it's been taking me on a particular course. So over the past 10 years plus, there have been many books. I think there's 13 books that I've written, I think, to date. Always giving back to the community. It's very important for me that I do that, because as you see with the grey, I'm getting old.
No, you're getting distinguished.
Passing the information on. Yeah, we need to be passing the information on to the people who are coming behind.
Yeah,
because we are making progress,
and that's one of.
But we need to be sure to be passing this on.
Yeah, that's one of the things that we've got, because on my team, I don't like having younger people on there, but we've actually started now. A couple of my team members have got kids who are very interested, and like you said, it's time to start passing on our knowledge so that investigations are done the correct way, because there are so many people that watch certain other ghost hunting TV shows that shall not be named and think that's how you do it, and that is not the correct way to do it. You know, it's any real paranormal investigation is not like what you see on a lot of these TV shows. You know, it's
that's right,
run and gun stuff. No, it's not as exciting TV to do a proper paranormal investigation, but that's where you get the real information from. So,
and you know, it's as imperative as you say that, you know, there are folks now who've seen the things on TV and they go out and they try and emulate that, but that necessarily wasn't the right way. And I call those, and you'll have to forgive my English, shits and giggles. And they don't understand that there can be ramifications from this.
Most definitely.
Now, a lot of people, you know, they don't understand that the best piece of equipment that we have is us. It's our own biological makeup.
Yep.
But we don't understand how that actually works. Well, now we do. Now we're understanding where the signals are coming from and how the subtlety of those signals work. But if we consume, say we go to a fast food restaurant before the investigation, and we have some refined sugar that will come in a soft drink or whatever the case may be, that has the ability to shut down our gift of discernment. That whisper that we pull from the environment that gives us the warning, wait a minute, something's not right here, we're silencing that. So we're effectively going into a situation blind. We eat candy bars, all the rest. During the investigations, it's shutting us down continually. We're blinding ourselves from what is coming through. Now, I recently have been doing this work for a new business that we've started up. It's called Awakening Events Limited. It's a new business registered in London, and along with one of the largest paranormal ufological online magazines, which is multilingual, we're also setting out a project known as Project Doorways, which is looking at these points within the planet of where this phenomena comes through and how we can interact with that phenomena, and also understand the phenomena and how we can create a level playing field in which when the encounter occurs, we're all on the same hymn sheet, so to speak.
Wow.
And there's many other projects that are under the same umbrella of this, but from our standpoint, understanding that when the phenomena begins to appear, and even before it begins to manifest, the timer is already ticking. Because if we're not attuned to that aspect of us, of our being, that innate ability to instinctually pull information from the environment, that gift of discernment, that inner voice, if we're not listening to that, we have 20 seconds. That's all we have. The window is 20 seconds. in which when it begins to manifest, we have to understand the signals that we're drawing from this manifestation. Because if our body reacts in a certain way, then our body is already aware that what is manifesting is not for our benefit. So you can either go on alert and understand that, or get the hell out of there. But you have 20 seconds. After 20 seconds, it will start to connect with you on the conscious level, because we're watching what's happening. So it's already locked us with the conscious connection. It locks that and starts to alter our brain pattern. It starts to move us into a theta pattern, in which then it can start to corrupt our interpretation of what it is. It can plant false memory. And all of that will happen after 20 seconds. It can even shut down our gift of discernment after 20 seconds.
That's really
so that's what we have got. That's our ability, is within 20 seconds. So that's very important that we understand that and hone that ability, because out of anything else, that's the best piece of equipment we have.
I've always,
as I said before, we live in an environment now in which we have to have so many pieces of equipment. It's all fantastic, flashy lights and beeping and all the rest. But all that does is serve to lock you in the conscious brain, in which you're continually problem solving. You're not listening to that gift of discernment. The technology is corrupting our ability to understand the phenomena.
Yeah, if you actually watch back through some of our previous podcasts, you'll hear people talk, especially when we do a public hunt. One of the first things I tell everybody is your body is your best instrument. I said, you, if you listen to it properly, you can pick up everything in your own human body. We use these gadgets because they're things that you can see and record, but you can't record things on your brain as such. And that's always been my belief. I think we actually are just about out of time. We've gone over a little bit, but I actually see a TV show in everything that you were just talking about, this whole getting this system together and getting out there. I can see a TV show which something that's never been done before, and I do believe that would be a groundbreaking new reinvention of the paranormal genre, because it's a more realistic thing.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
I mean, I for one,
they don't want.
They don't want.
They don't understand. They just don't understand. Anyway, I've been talking a lot. I'll let Fernando ask the last question before we have to let you go, because you've got a whole day ahead of you.
No. I mean, I'm just here, just enjoying. I mean, I feel like if I'm in like a very interesting like class, like I'm just learning. I mean, I've been in the paranormal field for over 20 years, I would say, and it's. I always say that we all can learn from one another. With your knowledge, with knowledge, with how you certain people use certain equipment and stuff like this. I for one, with all the bleeping lights, these REM pods and all this that cost $500-$600 for a piece of plastic, and I always say, I enjoy a little bit of the old school. There's nothing wrong with walking in with a voice recorder, or even with dowsing rods. And
I was going to say, I have my dowsing rods just over there somewhere.
Oh yeah.
Old school is sometimes way better than new tech.
Yeah. As far as questions are concerned, I mean, we would have to, do a part 2 and have you over again. I mean, I'm just saying.
Well, you're more than welcome, and I would be very happy to do that, because I'm aware that I can't shut the hell up.
No, that's... Hang on, we're locking that in now. Everybody has witnessed this. He's going to come back. So, what about next Tuesday? No, I really appreciate your time, and my brain is absolutely ticking. I'm usually the person that leaves everybody else's brain ticking, but you've just done that to me, and I'm not used to it. And I think there's a lot of conversations to be had. And I not just one, man. I think we could have you back and we could talk about specific things. And Yeah, I'm
It's
gobsmacked.
amazing. It's amazing to see where the research now is taking us, where the data is taking us.
Yeah.
And it's completely turned everything on its head.
Yeah.
Mm.
I would definitely love to learn more about, your experiences as far as where is science at today in the paranormal. That's for sure.
Mm.
Because you said something interesting about all of these gadgets are in a way hindering us from
Mhm.
proceeding. Because everybody's today, I feel like everybody just wants to make content.
That yeah.
The scientific part is just done.
They're relying on seeing the lights flat. I mean, I'm guilty. I think we're all guilty of using some of these things. I've got it in the video that I'm editing at the moment, but I don't discount personal experiences. You know what I mean? Because I've always said your body is number one, but it's about getting something that people can go, ooh. They have to be there in the moment to experience the real ooh, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But on that, Barry, do you have any closing comments you would like to say or advertise anything that you have coming up?
If folks want to see about the projects and what I've been doing and things like that, they can pop up to my website. It's charmstealer.net. And from there, they'll see about the new business. They'll see about the project doorway, the books and videos and everything else.
I recommend everybody go and do that as soon as you possibly can. So, Barry Fitzgerald,
Charms Dealer.
Charmstealer.net.
.net.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I'm just, again, I was a huge fan from the very first moment I saw you in Leb Castle. So yeah, I'll definitely be checking that out.
Yeah. Well, Barry, we will have you on again real soon, and I will make a point of wearing my flat cap for that one. And thank you for your time. We've really loved it, and I'm sure everybody who's watching has loved it as well. So thank you all, and take it easy, guys.
Take it easy.